This is Dabu7, taking a closer look at what's happening with the US dollar and what it is exactly that might bring this whole thing down. By design, nonetheless. And it's happening here on this world stage as the dollar, that's been the reserve currency for everyone for decades now, is losing its power. This is slowly happening. The slow death of the dollar. On the other side of this is the Chinese currency that is rising. I've been warning about this over and over, but since it's unraveling slowly, it's not as shocking to some that we're all expecting this to come crashing down like yesterday to destroy the dollar. So they're milking this out. And there's a handoff happening here globally, whether you want to see it or admit it. The whole world states the United States is past its peak and that China is now the rising power. Your allied Canada and their leadership see them as that. Other alleged allies of ours see China as the economic world power right now. Australia. So where does that leave us? It leaves us on the wrong end of the stick, if you ask me. But what's about to happen is there's going to be a push. There's going to be a push by the Chinese, and it starts with dumping all the debt and all the bonds that they were holding of the U.S. So this has happened. This has begun. This is eerily reminiscent to what was happening between the United States and Russia for decades. And now it's happening with China. The problem is when this was happening between the United States and Russia, we were a rising power. Now the tables have turned, and that's what they keep pointing out here. That this is a Cold War, so to speak, that no one wants to call it. But China is the rising power, they say. And when they look at the world, they say that China is one of the world's biggest creditor nations. It has a vast pool of savings. The U.S. is the world's single largest debtor nation, with record high government debt, consumer debt, on and on. This year alone, the federal government will likely increase its national debt by $5 trillion. More importantly, as we've discussed several times over the past few weeks, economic sustainability and prosperity are no longer priorities in the United States. It seems like the governments at local, state, and federal levels are all full of Bolshevik politicians that have sold us out. Many of them making backdoor deals with the Chinese. And I feel like the whole trade war was a farce. This is all by design, guys, to tear us apart. The Rothschilds have been inside of China since the days of Mao. Henry Kissinger is very good friends with Xi Jinping. You need to see we are getting played on this world stage, and a handoff is happening right in front of your face. And it's not just going to be a handoff to China. It's going to be a handoff to a whole new digitized system that China has been preparing, and is about to launch. And when they launch this full scale, what this means is that they will build their own financial system that will compete and eventually overcome the United States power. It would essentially take the global reserve market share away from the US dollar. Even a small portion would have a huge impact. A smaller share of global reserves would mean that the US could no longer get away with printing trillions of dollars and piling up endless mountains of debt. There would then be less demand for US bonds and the dollar, and it would weaken, and then it would cause serious inflation. So the conflict with China here on this world stage, by design, if you ask me, is the single largest threat to bringing down this thing. Without a cyber attack, an EMP attack, any kind of craziness, just keep on trucking along here, and it's the slow motion death of the dollar, day by day. Join me on D Live where I break this down further, where I got more time to break it down in detail. I could speak more freely on the topic and go down some of these rabbit holes. I'm live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Links below.